Hey guys, welcome back to Wuthering Waves. In today's video, we're looking at a big meta update post over on Pridewind. We got some bugs to do with a bunch of echoes that you need to be aware of. There's some of their new findings between teams. There's actually two posts over here. There's another one that goes through some really interesting stuff like the way ultimates pause the clock, but they don't pause your buffs. There's a bunch of information that they've got across two blog posts. So if you do want to dive in and read these, I'll leave them linked in the description. I'm going to do as much paraphrasing to get through the key points as I can in these blogs, but once again, if you want to dive deeper, I will leave them linked in the description. Also, Pridewind do have a YouTube channel that I never knew about where they upload some of their runs and stuff, so I'll leave that in the description as well. So let's get into it. First things first is going to be with some of the echoes being bugged. Now, we have seen tons of bugs in the game, but we've got even more. So the first one is Mech Abomination. Now, this is on the attack set, which isn't really a set that too many characters are using, but it is like a subset that characters can use. And the Mech Abomination, basically, it used to have like in the beta, it was like a long channel time, long on-field time to make it work. And now it's just like a tactical nuke that blows. But it's also considered outro damage. So when you get the 5-piece set, you get bonus outro damage. However, through their testing, they found that, and they got a video here of it that you can watch if you want to, but when you actually have the 5-piece equipped, it does less damage, even though the 5-piece is giving more outro damage, which is a really weird thing to me. So that Mech Abomination seems to be bugged, which is this one here, but once again, not too many people using that. Now, the other one that they mention in this is going to be, if we scroll down, the Impermanence Heron. If you manage to snag the shiny version of and this is only the shiny version of the Impermanence Heron, don't use it. It actually reduces both the damage and the energy gain compared to the normal version. This one is easy to work around, but we felt worth highlighting to hopefully spread the word to those potentially taking a performance loss. So essentially, if you're using the Impermanence Heron, which basically everyone uses it on your support character, or not your support, your sub DPS / hybrid character that's buffing your main DPS, because it's the energy set and it's the main one we use, don't use the skin if you've got it. It's, for some reason, damage is lower and the energy gain is lower. However, there's another one that they didn't list in here, which I got shared with, and I'll leave this link in the description as well. This is a clip from the streamer Razor Ninjas. So I'll leave that. You guys can watch it if you want. It goes through both of these issues. I will leave that linked in the description so you can check it out. But essentially what's happening over here with the Thundering Mephis is this is the one that has the 6-strike thing, and it's supposed to be after the final hit, it gives the electro damage and resonance liberation buff. However, with the skin, this one gets a buff and it actually applies the effect, the buff effect, the electro damage and liberation damage. It applies that at the very first hit instead of the last hit when you use the skin. So there's some messed up coding going on somewhere in here where there's just messed up things happening. So Thundering Mephis is better with the skin. Impermanence Heron is worse with the skin, and Mech Abomination is worse with a buff from the set that should make it stronger. So that is the current stuff we are looking at in there. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe the monkey has a busted skin as well. We'll wait and see once people unlock that from the TOA. So that is that. Then they go on to their Endgame complete summary on their account. Basically, they've cleared both the towers, but only with 2 stars. Sorry, only with 1 star on the final stage of both of them. You can see we've got 10 and 10 going through. And so they've done a fair bit of work. And basically, the next stuff we're going to look through is their findings from it. Massive shout out to Zajev and I Win to Lose. These are 2 guys that are doing some intensive testing and helping them out with it. I'm not helping them out too much because I'm a bit of a boomer and I have skill issues. So, you know, these things happen. Let's continue on. So they basically go through the clearing process and the strategies of it, but I'm not going to go too deep into that. That can be a whole video on itself. But here we go. Endgame tips and discoveries. I think this is a really good one for people to look at with some like things that people may look past. So the utility of healing. So before 1.0, healing was widely considered to be a mechanic for those without the appropriate skills to dodge enemies. While there is certainly some truth to that, healing in our experience made things much easier. Firstly, not all enemy damage is easily avoidable, specifically encounters containing multiple enemies you cannot dispatch quickly. Healing makes these encounters much safer. Healing is also strong enough in Wuthering Waves, even at low levels, to allow you to strategically tank one or even multiple hits to execute a high damage combo, only to heal it up later, improving overall damage. So this is a very big thing, and I think in these games often it's like, yeah, just why do you need a healer? Just be better. Like, but the thing is, if you are healing or shielding and you can just do your like, if you would have had to otherwise dodge and break your combo and then reset your rotation, like some characters have like big combos that they need to complete. If you can then just absorb that hit, provided it doesn't have hit stun or whatever, and you can keep damaging, and that allows you to execute a complete combo where it's got backloaded damage on the end hit, that is going to be much better for you. So the healing is actually very valuable, and looking at a healing is just, oh, you're bad. For me, yes, that is the case. But for a lot of people, if you are min-maxing, healing and making the most of healing to optimize your damage windows is actually a massive benefit. We expect healing to become less impactful at higher levels, and of course is less important on boss stages. But for now, and certainly not as useless as expected, especially if you're prone to missing one or two dodges. Definitely. I do like my Jianshin shields, I'm not gonna lie. The worth of area of effect. So this one we've actually talked about a lot, but like area of effect is so helpful, and this is when I made the tier list update with Jianshin. Like the grouping capabilities is just so huge, because if you're basically hitting one enemy, I mean, and you could be hitting 6, I think you're going to be doing more damage hitting 6. So I'm not going to dive too much into this, but yes, this is just them saying, you know, we're acknowledging that AoE is much more important than we first, gave it value for. However, I do think once you get into that, it's one of those things where I do think the value of AoE changes depending on your progression. Because right now, people are struggling to get through the side towers, which they have ads and they have like lots of units. Once we get into the middle tower, I believe, I haven't tried it myself because, you know, I suck. But the middle tower is more single target focused. So once again, it kind of brings me back to Honkai Star Rail, where at one stage Yangqing was like S tier because you needed to freeze and control the bosses because you were underleveled. I feel like this could also be the thing where once we get into the higher stages of TOA, the grouping no longer becomes a thing because you're fighting a single boss as your main enemy in the hardest difficulties, which means then you will, once we're higher leveled and you can easy clap the sides, then that AoE becomes less valuable in the upper end. So I'm curious to see how all this evolves over time, but we will wait and see. The brutality of resistances. This is a big one in my opinion for people. Resistances are brutal in this game, and ignoring them can be a heavy burden, carries a heavy burden. As an example, if you were to attack a Havoc resistant enemy with a Havoc damage dealer like Danjin or Rover, based on our testing, you can expect to deal at least half the damage as hitting a non-resistant enemy. Some have even reported on boss-specific enemies they experienced up to 70% damage reduction. Error is level 1, resistance level 108, that's on. The solution to this is, of course, to have a diverse roster of element damage and or feature teams with multiple elements, which they go into later when we look at multiple element damage dealers in a team. But yeah, resistances, be wary. If you're doing 0 damage, I noticed it. The big thing I noticed it in was the first time I noticed it, I jumped into the monkey because I had to do the monkey hologram boss for one of the missions. And holy shit, my Jian just did 0 damage. Like all the other ones, like I face rolled them, and then Jian was doing 0 damage on the monkey, and I'm like, what is going on here? And it's the resistances. The resistances are insane. Effective team allocation for easy clears. This is what I spoke about that they were going through. With your team formations, we use one team for the first and last. You use the other team for the middle 2, and that gets you through your 10 vigor for both the characters. This is something we can go through a bit deeper later on in future videos. Team archetypes. Okay, so they've sort of dubbed this quick swap or hypercarry. Hypercarry is the typical one that we looked at before the game's release, where you have a healer / support unit, then you have a hybrid which is used on the energy set to then buff your main DPS, and it's basically everything goes, and that's like sort of your Gian with Mortefi and Verena. That's your type of comp there. But now they also have, and they go through like the main comps that go through it. Gian with Mortefi, Lin Yang with Senhua. But some still viable, but not as common. That's Danjin with Mortefi, Havoc Rover with Senhua, and Encore with Senhua. But then they go through their quick swap. Now, these are teams, and they do have a replay here that you guys can look at, and I highly suggest you go check this out because I think this playstyle is quite cool. It's a bit more complex and harder to do than the Hypercarry, in my opinion, but it's still pretty cool. In this one, they use the Havoc Rover with Encore, so you got 2 DPS units, and you're basically continually swapping them, making use of their cooldowns and getting damage out of both of them whilst buffing them with another unit. In this one, it's Jianjin, who can also group, which she's really effective for this type of team because she can group them for both the DPS to keep hitting them, and then she also is on the healer set with the turtle to give them both buffs along the way. So it's a very interesting one with quick swaps, and I do think this quick swaps, double DPS, whatever you want to call it, obviously with Yinlin coming, we've got Kalchara Yinlin, who are known to do that in the beta. We're still waiting to see if Yinlin has any changes to her kit before we dive too deep into that, but once again, this is all very interesting things and new strategies you can test. And at the end of the day, once again, this game, I feel like once we're max level, you're going to be able to do this shit anyway. So just this is finding like viable ways to have fun in the game, I think is the most important thing when we look at these different types of setups. If you want to play hypercarry, play hypercarry. If you want to like swap around a ton, swap around a ton. It's like completely viable. But once again, they are testing at sort of higher levels and finding these type of compositions, which I think is very, very interesting. So once again, you can check through this and look at more of their stuff. But this is the basic summary here of what they do in this team with the Encore and Havoc Rover. And you've got Resonance Skill, you've got Inferno Rider, and then you've got the Forte Gauge Consumption, and these are like the abilities that you can swap out of and have them still on this field doing it, so you like animation cancelling or whatever you want to call it, and those are the abilities that you're looking to do with these characters. Each character will have their own list of abilities that you can do this with, and then I think eventually they'll make this whole roster of abilities, and then if you want to play those double DPS type teams or the quick swap teams, you can then do it with whatever characters, and then you just know the abilities that you're trying to swap in and out of to maximize your uptime of damage between characters. And I think it's really interesting and a really cool way of playing it, and definitely looking forward to seeing more teams like this come to the light. And then they obviously go through the Gian Hypercarry. This is the team that everyone's comfortable with. You just focus on getting every buff on your main unit, and then your main unit does everything. And that's typically, once again, with the Gian. Now, Kalcharo, they do a bit of a rundown of Kalcharo and his complex rotations and stuff like that. If you're a Kalcharo player, I definitely recommend coming over and checking out the Kalcharo page and checking them out, because they do have a good ton of information here with builds and calculations and rotations and stuff like that. So you can definitely go ahead and check that out. But what else do we want to go there? Okay, so then they just go through all the updates that they made to their site on the characters. Now, like I mentioned, there was a second blog in here where they go through a bunch of extra stuff. This is more like changes to the site, but I think this has some other, interesting information. Ultimate time freeze in Tower of Adversity. In the past, in Tower of Adversity, using the ultimate would freeze the clock for a set amount of time while you perform an animation, and in some cases, that time freeze would extend to a portion of non-animation attacks within ultimates. In 1.0, most ultimates now fully freeze the clock, not only for their cinematic animations, but also for their entire damage and effect window. The big one that comes to mind for me is Danjin, how she has a little animation, but then she's like slashing. I'm pretty sure that's what they mean. Many characters benefit from this update. Could you imagine just how painful it would be to watch the clock tick down as Danjin's incredibly long ultimate animation played? Well, now you don't have to worry. But this is the other interesting thing. We've tested all ultimate time freezes, durations, and determined the exact amount of time an ultimate ability takes in terms of TOA, which is Trial of Adversity, which is the endgame mode, time to update all calculations accordingly, yada yada yada. As a result, after all our guides are updated, expect all characters' rotations to be shorter across the board, yada yada yada. Okay, so here's the other one. Okay, I got caught up in that. This is what I really wanted to read: buffs and cooldowns and time freezes. This was the interesting thing. Building on the above, our team has also found that while using an ultimate in TOA, does freeze the clock and other systems like ability cooldowns, it does not freeze buff timers, meaning they'll be ticking down in real time. So this is the interesting thing where you get into weird situations, which once again, this could be a buggy coding issue where they haven't coded the game properly, because I feel like losing your buffs to that when the time is stopped, I don't feel like that seems right, but it is a thing at the moment. So you've got to like be wary of this stuff. But then they go through different strategies and stuff, moving from 90 to 100 being that they previously calc stuff based on level 90 enemies, but we do have the level 100 enemies. Echo repositioning, this basically just goes through a bunch of changes that they've had to their site. So if you do use Pride Winter, this is a good one to check. I'm not going to read through everything in this for you guys, but definitely go check it out. Pride Winter, once again, a fantastic resource. They have so many updated builds, rotations, best equipment, best weapons, best echoes. They have the best suggestions on here. So definitely check out Pride Winter. Database is absolutely amazing. Once again, they have the YouTube channel. I'll leave a link to these blogs if you want to go ahead and read more into these blogs, but that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to go for. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.